This program is made possible by the Bureau of Land Management, the Conservation Lands Foundation, and by support from viewers like you. Thank you. In celebration of the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Headwaters Forest Reserve, the Bureau of Land Management hosted a special storytelling event with Eric Hollenbeck, a nationally renowned woodworking craftsman who grew up exploring and working around this forest. Eric Hollenbeck is the nationally renowned co-founder and owner with his wife Viviana of Blue Ox Millworks, a fully functioning Victorian job shop, school, historic park, and haven for craftsmen. He has made pieces for state parks, historic cathedrals, Russian East Orthodox churches, 2 governor's mansions, and the White House. Eric has a special connection to the Headwaters Forest Reserve. He explored the historic town of Falk as a teenager in the 1960s, contributed to the restoration of a historic sand shack from Falk in 2012, and has been a lifelong supporter of redwoods conservation and preservation of our country's history. The Headwaters Forest Reserve protects a coastal redwood forest containing some of the last undisturbed redwood stands in the world, and supports threatened species including the marbled murrelet, northern spotted owl, coho and chinook salmon, as well as steelhead and cutthroat trout. The forest is within the ancestral homeland of the Wiyot people, and it remains significant to their dynamic culture as tribes continue to co-steward the landscape. The reserve is a unique part of the Bureau of Land Management's system of national conservation lands, designated by presidents or Congress to conserve the diverse ecological, cultural, and historical resources found upon them. As of 2025, there were 906 units covering more than 38 million acres in the system, which includes national monuments, national conservation areas, wilderness study areas, national scenic and historic trails, and wild and scenic rivers. In 2025, the BLM will celebrate the 25th anniversary of this spectacular system of public lands, and we welcome you to join us by visiting one of these areas. In the summer of 2024, Eric visited the Headwaters Education Center, a restored locomotive barn from the historic logging town of Falk, to share stories of living and working among the redwoods of the North Coast.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I'm happy to be here. This is a wonderful place. A lot of memories growing up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about exploring the town of Falk. First, I would like to tell you that the stories that I'm going to tell you go back 60 years plus. I can't get my head around that, people. I cannot. I did the math. It's over 60 years. My big hope is that the statute of limitations has run out on it now. I would like to start out by painting a picture for you of what it was like growing up here in the 50s and 60s. Because it was different than it is today, probably. It was boom times. I mean, absolute boom times. You know, I grew up knowing full well you could quit 3 jobs in a day and still be working that night. I left school at the middle of my middle year of high school because I can't read. And they kept telling me I was stupid, so I figured, well, I go to work in the woods. And that's what I did. And by the time the year was over, I was making $2.71 an hour, and the teachers are making $2.13 an hour. I thought, you know, I can't read, but I'm pretty good at math. And then at the beginning of my what should have been my senior year, my auto shop teacher, Marvin Collins, came out in the woods and told my boss, Eric's got to go back to school. Not because of truancy, not because of the school. All of that's baloney. Every bit of it's baloney. He has to go back to school for himself so that years from now he doesn't feel less than because he didn't complete something he started. And my boss said, sounds absolutely right to me. He said, you go with Mr. Collins here, and the instant you graduate, you get right back out here. Your job's sitting right here waiting, and that's exactly what I did. So I did get to graduate from high school.
The historic lumber town of Falk is nestled within Headwaters Forest Reserve. In 2023, the town was named to the National Register of Historic Places as the Falk Archaeological District, recognizing the site as an area of national significance and worthy of preservation. As the Headwaters Forest has reclaimed the land, only small clues and memories remain of the abandoned town of Falk.
One day, we're now at 1965, I believe, the year after the flood. I am 16, and I have a Volkswagen Beetle, a little small Volkswagen, and a driver's license. And Reed comes up with a great adventure. And the great adventure was, he said, there's a ghost town out Elk River Road. We came out, and halfway out Elk River Road, Reed said, oh, by the way, I got told there's a grumpy, mean caretaker out there. And he can sniff you out. So we really got to be stealthy. So we drove all the way up, and then all of a sudden spotted that little house. That was his house, and Reed says, that's his house, that's his house. And we duck like that's gonna do something. And putsy by and stopped, and then we backed down that road for what seemed like a long way. It was just probably a block or two, and pulled over, and we started hiking in the woods around the road. So we never did see the gate to Falk. We didn't see no signs that told us we can't be there. Didn't see nothing. Because we had gone clear up around. And when we came down, there were buildings there, but they were really dilapidated in '65. I mean, I don't remember going inside the buildings because we looked inside, but it didn't look like the floor would hold you. In fact, it didn't look like the building would hold you. It looked like the building wanted to go down the hill at any moment. But we got to pawing around, and under one of the buildings, like a little crawl space, was a box, a wooden box, and we drug that wooden box out and opened it up, and it had a Civil War, looked to us like, could have been World War I, but that ain't the way I'm telling the story. It was a Civil War. Army jacket. And the thing that is still burned into my brain to this day is the buttons. These metal buttons with raised eagles on them. They were the dangest thing I ever saw, because I'm used to these, just a button, just a flat. These had a dome, they were big, and they had an eagle, not stamped in, but embossed out of these buttons. And I remember rubbing my hands over these buttons thinking, my God, how did they even do that? It was incredible. I don't know why that made such a huge, big impact on me. But this was like the third house we had seen. And we put everything back in, and we closed the lid, and we pushed that box back. And the reason that we did that, because there was something wrong with this place. There was something that wasn't right. You look in, it was spooky something. There was, you look in the houses, even though we didn't go in, there were tables, and they still had stuff on them. They had plates, not laid out in order, but they had plates, and they had silverware just sitting on them. It's like somebody said, free beer in Eureka, and everybody left. And that gave it an air of, you don't mess with this. There's something about this, either spooky or spiritual, if you want to go there. There was something wrong with this whole place. The one thing that I remember is that one little shed building was still standing, and it was the filer's shop. My whole life, I have been told that Falk, him and his millwrights, were the first ones in our country up here to figure out how to get a band big enough to, you guys know what a bandsaw is, a band big enough to cut old growth to run on a wheel. Absolutely changed the industry, because before that, all the sawmills were over and under. They'd have a 6 foot, have a 6 foot bottom circle saw and a 5 foot top circle saw. And that could get you, in theory, 11 feet. So we came down, and the mill's all broken, but this one little shed's there, and it's a saw filer shed. And the unbelievable part, that shed's way taller than this building. The saw is probably a 40 foot long, 30 foot, probably a 30 foot long bandsaw. The file was still in the gullet. It was eerie. We did find a store, and we went in the store, and there were shoe boxes with brand new shoes in them, in the shoe boxes. They told the store, free beer in Eureka, and they left. It's so we took the shoe boxes down and pulled the shoes out. They were funny looking shoes, probably girl shoes or something, I don't know. We even put the shoes back in the shoe boxes and put the shoe boxes back on the shelves. It was that eerie. And all of a sudden behind us we go, "Hey, get out here, you two." So we go out, and sure enough, it's the watchman. And grumpy God Almighty he was. And we tried to say, we're not doing nothing, we didn't do nothing. And then us three, Dennis, me, and Reed, had a stock answer when we got caught where we weren't supposed to be. And the stock answer was, "Oh, we're here looking for Gene Titus. You know Mr. Titus. He lives right around here someplace." And well, there wasn't no Gene Titus. But that was it. And I almost said it, and Reed saw it and gave me a look that I cut that off. Now I look back, that wouldn't have flown at all. We were busted, period. So we tried to tell him that we didn't do nothing, and we put stuff back, and he says, "Empty your pockets." So we dug everything out of our pockets and held it in our hands, and we hadn't taken a button, we hadn't taken nothing. We had put everything back just the way we had found it. And then he relaxed a bit, just enough to let us know we weren't going to be executed. And he walked us down to the gate. And he said, your car's right down there. The car we hid. And he said, I don't want you to see you back here again, and on and on. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Well, the next weekend, it was too wonderful a place. Reed and I had to come back. And that time, he caught us right straight away. And that time, he made it real certain that he didn't want to see us again. So we gave up exploring out here. But it was eerie. But I preach this to everybody who will listen. Logging today has got a bad rap. And because we're trying to put today's thinking on yesterday's set of circumstances. I am in awe over the original loggers, or the original guys and gals. You walk up to trees the world has never seen in all of history. You walk up to a tree 20 foot in diameter, 360 feet tall. First off, how are you going to get it down? How are you going to get it on the ground? Okay, the magic wizard comes and helps you, and now it's on the ground. Now how are you going to buck it? How are you going to get it into short enough lengths that you can move it? Okay, the wizard comes again and helps you. Now how are you going to move it? All you got's oxen. How are you going to do this? Those trees weigh an enormous amount. Okay, you get 75 oxen up in one pole, and you get it moved. You're moving it. Where are you going to move it to? There have never been sawmills built in the history of mankind. And we have a 1,000,000-year-old history, by the way, mankind. My point being, every one of those problems they had to solve, and they did. When I started working in the woods when I was 16, the world was asking for cheap building materials. We have to have it, give it to us. And we did. You see, that was the circumstances then. And these guys and gals did. When '06 earthquake hit San Francisco, it needed to be rebuilt, and it needed to be rebuilt now. We stepped up to the plate. We did it. When the world wars happened, we needed materials now, and we stepped up to the plate and we did it. We started Blue Ox in 1972. This is our 52nd year in business. And we started as a logging company. I went to the bank and I said, I want to borrow $300. I want to start a logging company. Well, he started to laugh. And he laughed so loud, the entire bank turned around and looked at me. I felt about this tall. I could have walked standing straight up out under that door with it closed. But he gave me the money, and with that $300, we bought a very used 1.5-ton 1950 Ford flatbed truck we named Ophelia Bumps. We bought a used chainsaw. We bought a brand new choker, which is the steel cable hooks around the log, and enough gas to get us into the woods. We had a landowner that gave us his 20 acres to take the dead and dying trees out. So what we would do is we'd fall a tree and bucket to 16 foot because Ophelia had a bed that was 15 foot and we could have a foot overhang. We'd hook the choker on it. Ophelia would drive up to it nose first, We'd hook the choker around the bumper because reverse is the tallest gear you got. And then she'd back up and drag it out until she got it out on the road. And then she'd drag it down the road and we'd take a little limb, 90 degrees to it, and throw under it and bounce it up on this little limb. And then a bigger limb and a bigger limb, and pretty soon we had rounds this big and we had a teeter-totter going. And then two of us just sit on the back and pull up the teeter-totter best we could. The third one to come and unhook the choker. Ophelia go turn around and then back up to it. And on a good time, we barely made it on the bed. And then she'd back up until the other three of us could pick the end of the log up. And she'd back around and we'd look for a stump or a bank, anything she could butt up against to push the log on. We were so good at it, the Forest Service gave us 2 campgrounds to take the dead trees out of during the winter. They closed the campgrounds. We stayed in the campgrounds and got to log these trees out. They were trees 5 and 6 foot in diameter. They were big trees, but they would have posed a problem, you know, a hazard for the campers. So we started manufacturing. I built our own sawmill, and then that's how that whole progression. And then in 1980, Eagle House started, and that was my training ground for Victorian millwork. Three years straight on one building. 3 years straight, every day, work on that one building, that was it.
In 2011, students from East High School in Fortuna assisted the Bureau of Land Management in constructing a replica railroad sand shack from the town of Falk using as much original lumber as possible. Eric and students from Blue Ox Mill Works made the redwood shingles needed to complete the roof of the structure using a 1908 Sumner shingle machine.
The shingle mill we found up in Washington, and it's a 1908 Sumner. It is without a doubt the most dangerous piece of equipment we have on the property. There's a 50-inch circle saw right here. And you have to reach over and touch the saw blade as it's running and rub your hand on the saw blade. That saw blade's going chikink, 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 chikink. And each time it does that, it's peeling off a shingle. So you run your hand on the blade, grab that shingle, but you can't watch that because there's a 36-inch zipper blade, because it's right here at your zipper, with a spring-loaded flap. You grab that shingle, shove it into the flap, go down once, now you're rubbing your hand on the saw again, go down once, that clips one side, square with the base. You flip it up, grab it in midair, back down, clip the other side, and you're repeating that process. It's crazy. And yet, the amazing thing is that if you were Looney Tunes enough to want to get into the shingle trade, that's still the Cadillac to this day, that 1908 Sumner shingle machine. I don't like the word teacher. I really don't believe anybody teaches anybody anything. I think a better term might be facilitator or shower or something like that. Make the problem interesting enough that then they're going to learn how on their own. They're going to figure it out. And we work with hard case kids. You know, Viviana says I shouldn't say that, but hell, I'm one of them, so I can say whatever I want to say. Because there ain't no judgment there. If they're no good, that means I'm no good, and I ain't going there. And I tell the instructors, these kids are like an old engine. And you dink with it, and you dink with it. You make sure it's got oil. You take the spark plug out and clean it and put it back in again. You take the points out. You file the points. You dink with it. You prime it just a tad bit. You dink with it. All of a sudden, that engine hits. And the instant it fires, get the hell out of its way. Don't dink no more. No, really. Everything about that engine wants to run. The physics, the quantum world, the geometry, everything about that engine wants to run. So get out of its way and let it run. And these students are exactly the same way. Well, thank you so much for having me, folks. Now I'll go smoke.
This program is made possible by the Bureau of Land Management, the Conservation Lands Foundation, and by support from viewers like you. Thank you.